Okay, here we are. So, welcome, my friends. Special, extra amazing episode of the Celebrity Coach Chat because now we have two celebrities with us. And you remember Eleonora probably from a previous episode. But look, she brought a friend with her this time, Brian. And you can see up in the corner, if you're looking at the video, their logo for the A&E workplace culture, which is, I think that's super cool. And you're going to tell us what the A&E stands for, right? Which one of you wants to go first? So maybe because people might know Eleonora, Brian, give us a little intro on what got you into this world of workplace culture, or whatever you want to share with us, really.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you, Heather, for inviting both Eleonora and myself on today to talk to you. We're looking forward to talking to you a little bit more.
And it's always my favorite thing is the chatting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Eleonora and I, just to give you a little bit of a background, we have worked at George Brown College. And when we were talking one time on break, we discovered that we're both coaches. And we both talked about how we would like to continue to grow our business and to help people in organizations, help organizations improve their own productivity within their organizations, but also helping people to know themselves better and to help themselves better for their own personal lives. And by helping them with their own personal lives, we're helping them with their professional lives as well. So Eleonora and I decided that, you know what, let's collaborate, let's work together. We get along pretty well together. She laughs at my jokes, I laugh at her jokes.
Right.
So
that's key.
That's the key. So then we decided we get along really well, and I think we have a unique energy that we can help other organizations and other people through their personal and their professional lives.
And I like how, when you have a team of two people, you can bring in a couple of different perspectives into whatever you're coming at, right? So, which I think is super valuable to people who bring you in. And
yes.
My thought just left my brain. So Eleonora, you jump in.
Yes, I wanted to say it's so interesting what Brian said, because first of all, A&E is Andretta and Epstein. Before you think it's anything else, it could be.
I had no idea.
So those are our two last names. And what Brian said about humor, that made me think a lot. Even when Brian and I discussed, we really did connect on humor, and we're two very serious professionals. But when we met in the school, we found out that we talked about the students. We didn't talk about the course. It was more about, okay, how you're dealing with that student, how are you dealing with that. So we know that it's always about the people, and it's always about how they face the challenges. So it could be the workplace, it could be the school, it could be any group of people is facing challenges in a different way. So for us, it was about teaching. Yes, the course we were teaching, it was for academic purposes. But then we said, you know what, why don't we do this outside? And we joined forces because, again, getting along with jokes is important because you connect with someone. Isn't that amazing?
It is. And, companies aren't, you don't stop being the person you are when you go to work and be a company, right? So I liked how Brian was saying, it's not necessarily your professional life. It's everything going on is you're going to bring to work with you. It's like people say, don't bring your work home, but you bring your home to work. If you're having problems
Yes.
at home, you're bringing it to work for sure. So
yes.
I guess when you are helping, so you're helping teams?
Yes, exactly. And that's what Brian and I were mentioning even yesterday, and he'll tell you more about that. But we said, even when managing teams in the workplace, it's always about the individual first. Because if somebody has uncertainties or fears or is not happy, is angry, what kind of team member can you be in the workplace? So that's where we started. And that's what our programs are based on, really taking responsibility for who you are first and then being part of a team. So this is our project.
And if I may, if Eleanor, I didn't see the whole show that Eleanor was on, so maybe she plugged her book already. But this is a good chance to plug your book again, Eleanor. Why don't you tell a little bit more about your book and how that's a good thesis of how we're working together and how we're
people may
providing
not
our
have
support.
seen the other one, so
I'm
You're
sorry.
right.
people may not have watched the other one yet. So bring it, and
So
it's
thank
great
you,
for
Brian,
them
for
too.
that. Thank you very much, Brian, for that. I have to say, and the book is right here. But you know what? We discussed about this book so many times, Brian and myself, and we just discussed about the value of training teams. And for me, this book was instrumental for me because I really said, I want to say what I think about coaching, about growing, about growth, about improvement. And for me, it's called Future Me, Future Team because it starts from me. And so that's where the whole thing started. For me, it's about being responsible for what you do and asking yourself, just like you said, Heather, you go to work, instead of complaining, what am I doing, for improving the team? What am I doing for my boss? Or my boss is really unpleasant to me. Well, what are you doing to make sure that you are appreciated? And that I think is very liberating. That's why I said, you know what, if I can help other people learn about that, I will be happy because this is what changed my life. And traveling light, that's what I say. You travel light because you go back to yourself. You cannot blame any other person in your life, which is sometimes a bummer. You think, oh, I can't blame anybody for my unhappiness.
Come
it's
on,
not his
it's got to
fault.
be someone else that did it.
It's got to be like, I have to be the perfect one and everybody is. But then you realize, no, it's about me. And so these 12 steps for traveling light are about that. Learning to say no and boosting your energy and starting from you. And
So do
then
you
you can
use
do,
the book when you're doing teams that do you take that?
yes. So we developed modules out of book.
Oh,
So we translated the book into workshops and exercises and teamwork and group work and case studies so that everybody at the end of our course can have a booklet to take home. And during the sessions, we work on the book. Then, of course, we added a couple of things because over time, Brian was bringing other content and I was bringing other content too. We said, okay, why don't we put this here so there's maybe a theme that day, and then we do whatever we think would be useful for that particular team, that particular organization. And but the main idea, the core idea is that growing in a team. That's why it says, even if you can't read it because it's really tiny, it says to be the person others want to succeed with.
Oh, that's good.
It's like, if you're not a pleasant person to work with, then there's no team.
No, I've worked on those teams.
How did that go?
It went so great. Yeah. Sarcastically, I left. It's like, I'm out of here. If I'm not happy, I'm not going to perform my best. I'm going to take that junk and be, not happy at home. And it just creates this life that you don't want to live, right? And so so is it a finite amount of time you spend with teams, or do you get after you take them through the initial, is there ongoing because I'm imagining, because I did work in corporate for 15 years, right? And it's like, here's your course. We're all going to go as a team on this course. And then you come home, you're like, look, I got a binder. And you put it on your shelf.
And you put it there.
And I mean, it takes some degree of effort, a shift of attention, intention. When you're in it, you're like, yes, I'm going to do this. And then you go back to the office and nothing is different. So how do you help these groups kind of keep their momentum once they get back from their, or does it take place over time?
We discussed so much about this, Brian, right?
It can be over time, and it can be, we want to help people to take what they learn in our programs and be able to implement it right for him or herself. So everybody
on a personal level.
Exactly. Everybody comes to our programs from a different perspective and is carrying different challenges with some of their own personal stuff that may be affecting their professional output. So we want to be able to work with them one-on-one after they come from the program and after they participate in the program. As you said, you come home and you're feeling really excited. Just guess what I just learned today. But we all know, I guess you would have to Google it. I can't remember if it's 30 or 40% what we actually learn when we go to a workshop. Maybe it's less. But so now we want to work with the client, work with that person, and help him or her to, how can this program help you, and can it, and ultimately it's going to help the organization as well.
So it's almost like you're working with teams, but really you're trying to help the individuals so that they can work better in the teams. Is that fair?
Yes,
Right.
that's a great recap, because like I said in the other podcast, when I told you about the book, I mean, there is an I in team, and it's really huge. It is huge. Like if you're an unhappy person, that's why I was talking to another colleague, and we were saying, the team building exercise is done for just the team. Okay, you're in this room now, get along.
Right.
Now love each
What's
other.
that? Trustful. Fall,
Yes.
come on, we'll catch you.
Trust each other.
Man. I don't know.
And we also think, we were saying this, a colleague is just a colleague. You don't necessarily need to become best friends. It's about being professional. And sometimes I think there's even that problem. Sometimes people expect somebody in the workplace to take care of all their needs. It's just work. So if you focus on yourself, then I think you let go of all the rest, and you don't have to be best friends. If you make good friends, like Brian and myself, we met in the workplace. Can you imagine? Right. So it is wonderful to be there. But if it doesn't happen, then it's fine. You don't need to, I think sometimes we expect a lot of our colleagues.
Right. You don't have to become best friends forever.
Exactly. Just say hello, even if nobody says hello back, because it makes you feel good about yourself, right? It's not about expecting someone else to make you feel good in the morning, but maybe you walk in and you say, hello, everybody, good morning.
Right. And so go ahead, Brian.
Oh, I was just going to add to that. It's just creating that comfortable environment to work at. Because as you said before, you worked at an organization that you were not happy. And most of us have worked at some point, maybe years back, in a situation that we may not have been happy with. But the idea is, why not create a work environment that we feel good at to go to each day? I mean, I know that's maybe to some people might say, I don't know if that's possible, but it can be possible if you create that work environment, and not only are professional to each other, but we talked a little bit about humor before. I mean, humor is one of those things you have to be careful with, because you don't want to hurt people's feelings at the same time. But being showing your willingness to be open and friendly to other people, and interested to learn about other people from their perspective, where they come from, it can add a lot to the team and you as the person in the organization.
What do they say when you have to give a speech? To break the ice, you always start with a joke, right?
Exactly. And I hope that they get it. That's my second thought.
Yeah.
I hope they
doesn't crash and burn.
Well, so at the beginning, we were cautious of each other, right, Brian? We were like, okay, do you think? And then once we understood that we had the same sense of humor, it was on from that day. And in this case, it's different because it's a partnership, so we really do need to get along. But that's different. That's different.
That's not you're going into the office and you share, I used to work in a sea of cubicles. You're not in like the same cube space. You are actually working closely together. So I guess, have you ever ended up in teams that had conflicts that you had to kind of sift through? And how do you help? Do you take that on an individual basis to figure out, is it a personality thing? Is it a life thing? Is it you're in the wrong job and maybe you should go on a vision quest? I don't know.
Like looking for something else.
Right.
I think a lot of times conflict happens when we're all different personalities, and some of us are more quiet, some of us are more sensitive, some of us are more outgoing. We have different ways of dealing with different things. And one of the things that we're using within our organization now is called DISC assessment. And DISC assessment talks about that we are working with different people, and people are assessed to find out what kind of people you are, what kind of person you are, which your the way that you present yourself and how you get along with other people. And I think if you understand yourself better and the people in their team understand each other, it will help people to get along with one another a little bit better. So I can understand, like Eleonora and I understand, but if we understand the other people in our team, that can be helpful as well.
Yeah, I had a similar conversation with Karen Eit, who I think I've connected you with, Karen. And she was talking about, we talked about, she does the color personality profiles.
Oh, yes.
And we had that conversation where even for her, she talked about her sister. She said, once I realized my sister was this, then I realized why we always, didn't connect, didn't get along all that well. She goes, but once I understood her, now I understand, like, now you know what kind of information makes her feel comfortable or how to interact. And I can remember way back in the day, back when I lived in Nova Scotia, Brian, I worked at Nova Scotia Power, of all places. And we did the Myers-Briggs. And it was interesting to see the variety. We were all accountants, but the variety of people within that team were very different. And it made you realize, oh, that person isn't trying to annoy me. That's just the way they operate. That's just the way their brain works. But do you find there has to be an openness to have those conversations, to accept people differently? Or do you find people just, when they realize it, they take that on?
You know what helped me, and this is something that I wrote in the book as well, and it was a game changer for me, for anger and resentment, that it's never personal. And this is something that when you hear it for the first time, you're thinking, no, that person has something with me. But actually, through time, the more I trained my brain on this and the more I observed, I really found out that even people who were or have been unpleasant, although that's also a little bit of a judgment, but it's never about you. That person has other issues. Probably something is coming up and it looks like it's against you. But if you live thinking, you know what, I'm doing my thing and this person is just reacting to her or his own issues or thoughts or fears, and it's nothing against me. And I think that's what helps conflict. Once you start realizing, you know what, the other person doesn't have anything against you. It's just something that you're evoking, or there's just, like you said, their style. It's just annoying to you, but it's not anything against you.
And maybe maybe you have an expectation of, if I'm super cheerful and say good morning, you should be cheerful back to me, damn it.
Yeah, exactly.
But what if they're not feeling it that day? That's got nothing to do with you. But it is hard to remember, because people do get offended if they don't get the feedback, the reaction they want.
And it's the ego, right? So you're thinking, but then if you're cheering everybody up because you want something in return, that is not really why you should be doing that.
Right? Oh my goodness.
I actually had another thought.
Okay.
When you talk about the DISC assessment, can you imagine if you brought your extended family together, whether or not it's at Thanksgiving, at Christmas, and you said, and you have Uncle, whatever his name may be, because there's always one uncle in every family that says something that annoys the rest of the family. You got everybody together and said, today we're going to do a DISC assessment because we want to get to know one another a little bit better so that we can understand each other, because a lot of those conflicts happen in families where people, different personality, you could be from the exact same family, but you have different approach to do something. So I think the DISC assessment could be help. There's another opportunity for us, Eleonora.
You can also start the DISC dating.
What's that?
The DISC dating profiles,
that would be great.
Right?
Dating.
And then you're a D, you're an I, you're an S.
Will you come into conflict, and where might you come into conflict, and how can you head it off in advance?
Right.
But yeah, you're right. And it's this DISC, that's why we were fascinated. Although we have to be always careful, right? Not to label people, but okay, that Thanksgiving lunch, Brian, is a good idea. Can you imagine Italians? We are already pretty loud, even without DISC. Can you imagine if we start saying, oh, this is what you're like? Oh, okay, that would be bad. But for us, for our business, we thought about DISC because we said, you know what? I think it's a human thing. People love doing tests on themselves, and doing those quizzes where it says, oh, find out what kind of jogger you are, or what kind of artist you would be. So we were thinking it would be really great for us to start with that, so that anybody can have a report, because it has to start from self-reflection. So DISC is also about finding out about yourself first. So the first thing Brian and I did was to do a DISC assessment on ourselves, because it always starts from you.
Right.
We can just try to say, oh, it's about the team. They're not but it's really about your own actions and initiatives.
I just recently, so Eleonora and I are both part of the Certified Coaches Federation, and I just took the relaunched leadership coaching certification, and it was so good, because one of the things they talked about was the pyramid to success is at the top of the pyramid, and at the bottom of the pyramid is you, and then the people, and then I can't remember what the third thing was. Adele will kill me that I can't remember. But it was
we'll tell her. We'll let her know now.
I know.
Send an email.
Adele, I haven't done my homework yet, but I'm working on it.
You still have time.
But the bottom level of any success is, no matter how many things, like tasks, projects, it starts with making sure that you are the person that you need to show up as. And I mean, I talk about wellness all the time, because I say you can't show up in the world to be your best self unless you're taking care of the person and have an awareness, the person that you live inside of, like you. I'm just getting a bit mystical there, but I was talking about souls with Julie. That's why. But you have to take care of you so you can show up. Like, you might show up to work in a bad mood one day, but if you're cognizant of that, and not to say that you have to be happy, cheerful all the time, but you could just have an awareness. I'm not so great today, so I will either warn people, I'm not having a great day, so maybe just leave me alone, or something like some kind of awareness, so that you know that you aren't showing up as your best self, and what can you do to bring that back in to help you improve.
Yes.
Did all that make sense?
It does. And when you were saying that, Heather, I thought that's why we are so fascinated by the workplace. Me, Brian, you, like, I remember when I was at George Brown, I was going through some very emotional time, and it was a magical thing that happened. There were people who approached me in the morning that I never met before, because there were so many colleagues, and one of them came up to me and she just told me, would you like a tea? And she hugged me. And I will remember that for the rest of my life. It was just a very simple gesture. She sat down with me. She didn't ask me anything. She just saw that I was just really emotional. And so the workplace is a great place. That's why we're thinking, wow, it's such a shame if it becomes toxic or unpleasant, because we spend so much time in it. I mean,
there's a good chance you spend more time at work than at home. I mean, pre-COVID days, I don't know these days, but
but still, yes, you're right. So I was like, it's one of those. It's on a human level, it's a very strong, it's a very powerful environment. And Brian was also telling me, other workplaces that he worked in, so many things happen, and you have these stories in your mind. So it's worth it to try and make it a pleasant place to be in, because.
And from a business perspective, like, I used to work in a health management company that managed the health of corporations, like the physical health. And the premise was, if your employees are healthy, they will, like, a bit selfish on the company's part, if you can keep your employees happy and healthy, they'll work harder and produce more. I mean, not entirely selfish, but it's true. If you can be in a good space, if you enjoy the people, for the most part, I mean, not every day is going to be sunshine and unicorns, but not dreading being there, then you will feel like you are contributing, I guess. And I mean, I was just thinking as we were talking, when I mentioned COVID, I'm like, this is like the perfect opportunity for companies to really check in with their employees and how they're doing. And teams right now, like, have you tried to work yet with teams that haven't even met yet in the last 2 years? Like, they haven't been together. That whole people thing will be an interesting thing for people to try and navigate. What are you thinking? I see Brian's thoughts going.
Yes.
I mean, I think we have worked with people from different teams and trying to bring them together. And I think it's critical. It's so important. I was thinking actually while you were talking there a few minutes ago, it's indirectly related to what you were talking about. You were saying that, creating an environment where people feel comfortable. A lot of organizations, we hear of the Facebooks of the world, and some of those high-tech companies are
The Googles.
they have ping pong tables there, and they're giving you a lot of food and making it a fun place, which is nice, but and that is helpful. But I think it's also creating an environment where people themselves, how do we get other people, whether or not it's at the leadership level, who have a lot of responsibilities, and they have to get their reports done, and they have to finally get their work done. But how important is that for that leader to come down or to come and talk to the other people at that organization? In fact, another organization that I was at recently, he talked to me about, Brian, I know I have to get out of my own little office at least a half an hour in the morning or half an hour in the afternoon, just to talk to the people so that they know that they're appreciated and welcome, even having small talk about almost nothing, or just to find out how his kid's soccer game was last night. Then the people feel like they're appreciated, and this is a place that I feel good at, and I have a lot to offer to people.
Right. And it's true. I can remember at one point when I was in one of my jobs, I was very stressed out, and I wasn't coming out of my office at all because I had so much work to do. And I had the best staff on the planet, and they would come in and sit down and talk to me because they knew they could. But I was forgetting, thanks for the reminder, Brian, I was forgetting to come out and talk to my staff. But sometimes, like, there's a fine line, because I know, like, when you're a boss, you can't be people's best friends necessarily.
It's a fine line, right?
It is a fine line, because you do still have to be their boss, but you can be a compassionate and concerned person with them, right?
Yes.
And if a boss or leader should try to at least know something about each of his people that's working with him or her. I mean, how many times have you read articles that this wonderful leader knew something about each one of the persons? It might have been something really small about his wife, his daughter, his mother, or a cousin, or a trip that he took. But that makes the person feel like this is a place that I'm appreciated at.
They're more than a commodity, right?
I'm more than a commodity, exactly.
Yeah. And working with teams, I mean, I guess you must involve, how far up the chain do you go when you're involving the leaders in it? Or is it just the team?
I wanted to add something about teams working, because one of our clients was developing presentation skills, and he was getting negative feedback about his presentation skills. So that's what he wanted to work with us on. I think the feedback, accepting negative feedback it was constructive, but it was still negative. If it's in person, it's one thing, but he never met this team. So he was called, and then all of a sudden they appeared on Zoom, and he would do presentation, and then everybody went, and he would receive these reports. So all he had, maybe even meetings, but he said maybe he was even more worried than necessary. But not being there in person, not seeing people, and maybe, like we said earlier, okay, maybe you have negative feedback, but let's get a coffee afterwards. You kind of calm down. You see that people still like you. So I'm guessing this working remotely, when it comes to teams, that's what we've noticed, adds a little bit of tension that I'm sure would not be there if people could say, okay, we did 3 hours of very hard work. Now let's get some sushi together. You would go, okay, you know what? They still like me. This guy was really worried about, am I going to keep my job? Because communication is hard, I
Well, you
guess.
don't even get a chance to have small talk or banter or tell jokes if you're not like, because I've facilitated Zoom meetings. You can't have a conversation with like just a casual, hey, how's your mom conversation? Because one, everybody in the room is listening to your conversation.
Exactly.
And you have to take, in Zoom, you still have to take turns talking. So,
And Brian and I wouldn't have met.
right?
Or I would never thought, oh, let's do some business together, because it would have been different. So, and yes, to go back to your question. So we usually meet with managers at the beginning. What we found is that, and this is something that we can't really say to the person, but whoever is in charge of a team, it could be, I don't know, a president, CEO, whatever. I think sometimes the approach is, my team has a problem, go fix it for me, which is nice. So we do usually do the assessment with whoever is in charge, and we talk about potential problems. So we have even an initial questionnaire, a feedback questionnaire that is anonymous. Then it depends what they want to do, because maybe they want to see, if they're open to having workshops and webinars, whatever. But I think what we found is that sometimes people who are at the top will tend to think, I want my team to work better, to be more productive, because that's the end goal. Mm-hmm. So please come in and fix them.
Right.
And maybe we'd like to say, maybe you should be involved in the process as well. But then doing a session, for instance, with the manager in the room, we found it when we were in person, it doesn't really work. And I understand. So that, I think, is still something that needs to be defined.
Right. People will temper their conversation and responses if their boss is in the room, especially if it's a team that's struggling. So,
or they think that we're spies, that we're going to report what's going on.
Right.
So it could happen. I mean, it's just something that we usually say, just to make sure this is not us looking at what you're doing and then telling, unless you want us to do that, and maybe.
Right.
But I was with another organization before that we used to, just on that note, we used to have workshops for the leaders, the directors, the VPs of the organization getting together. Actually, they were from different organizations and they got together, and then another workshop for the employees, because sometimes, as you say, both have said, the employees, like, oh my goodness,
Yes.
They shut up when they know that the director is sitting in the back of the room there.
Right.
So,
they're like, oh, we love the company. We love working here and it's great.
Right.
We're happy with everything that's going on.
This is the best boss ever.
Exactly.
And also there's an interesting idea that you don't really need a coach because you have a problem. I think coaching is really great for any organization at any stage, because it's about refreshing. It's just like when you do a detox every 6 months, and you don't do it because you have a problem, but you do it because you kind of feel the need to refresh your system and just start anew and learn something new, because what we're doing, is also giving little insights and inputs, like new things to talk about or to think about. So it doesn't, sometimes the culture is, oh, coaches are for solving problems, but it's
Right.
not. Sometimes just come in and do a 2-day workshop on how to improve communication. Wow, why not? It doesn't have to be an issue.
Or to provide a forum where people can debrief and get off their chest what they're thinking, because a lot of times people are working hard, getting the work done, meeting that deadline, but they don't have time to kind of reflect. So these
Right.
workshops will provide people the opportunity to reflect what's going well and what could they do a little bit better.
And I mean, there's always stuff to work on, like even on an individual basis, I'm always hashtag better than yesterday. That's my hashtag, better than yesterday. And sometimes, because I always talk about, I work with six aspects of wellness, and only one of them is physical, right? because there's all these other aspects to wellness. So one day I'm working on my physical wellness today to be better than yesterday, but then the next day, maybe I'm working on my professional wellness and what would help me be better professionally. So it's like, maybe it's not every single day, because as I was talking to somebody earlier today, it takes time for change.
I was about to say, okay, if you do that every day, Heather, I mean, you're just amazing. You
So
are
I was talking to a gentleman earlier today, and he used the example of having a baby. He said, the husband or the partner doesn't walk up to the pregnant lady and say, after a couple months, where the heck's the baby? How come it's not here yet? These things take time.
Exactly.
These things take time. So maybe not every day, but there's always some tweak to make. There's always a new lesson to learn. So I like how you say, like, every 6 months, 9 months, 3 months, had like a little come back around. What's changed? What worked? What didn't work? What do you want to try now?
And also what Brian said is really important. And I'm thinking of what you said earlier, Heather, when you said, I was in my office so busy, and because you were so much in your head. And sometimes I think the most disruptive question of all, but the one that can really maybe can change the day of a person and can make, just release the pressure, is just the question, how are you? Just sitting down with the person and say, okay, how are you? How is it going? And maybe they will start telling you about what's going on, and then they will feel better. And maybe the workplace will benefit from just a simple conversation of going in and checking with everybody how they're doing, just like a wellness assessment, like you said, a general wellness assessment, and giving people the chance to talk. I think that's what people need. Have you ever had anyone
say, do you really want to know?
Exactly. How much time do you have? Let's not even go there.
Two obvious words that should be entered to this discussion: being non-judgmental and acceptance. I mean, if we could listen to our colleagues and try to put aside our own judgments, and then just listen and try to see how we can help that person, and try to accept the other person for his or her own viewpoints and insights. They're different from us. They're different from me, but they should be validated and listened to, and we get to know that person a little bit better. That's going to help.
There's been a lot of really polarizing topics in the world over the last 2 years.
Really? No, I never noticed.
Yeah. We don't know.
Wait, what? I mean, there's always differences of opinion, but perhaps the intensity, someone turned up the dial on the intensity for some of them. And taking all of that, like that one opinion does not define a person, right? So can you remove that, agree to disagree, and then can you still operate respectfully with compassion with each other, right? I like your non-judgmental and acceptance. Those are your 2 words. Mm-hmm. When you said non-judgmental, I thought that was the 2 words. It's like, wait.
Now we're defining.
What are you going to say, Brian?
Well, I used to hear people say all the time that we should be more tolerant of other people. And I actually have I don't really like that as much as saying we should be accepting of other people.
Tolerance is a very judgmental word. Right?
Yeah, tolerance. I don't like this person, but I better tolerate her or him. Accepting is like I'm trying to work with him or her. He or she may have different perspectives and insight, and I accept him. He or she has a lot to offer to the group or the organization or the team.
And the world would be so boring if we were all the same.
Exactly. Right. Oh my God. It would be very boring. And also listening. Sometimes I find that it has become very difficult to have a dialogue with somebody, especially I think somebody who has a different opinion. I love debates. I love those. It's the minute you don't say what is expected in any field. I'm not just talking about it's like the label. And that is, for me, becomes really boring. And then at the end of the day, I'm thinking, you know what? I'd like to hear from people who think differently and see why. sometimes there's no interest in the why, right? It's just, and that affects the workplace as well. In very simple exchanges, sometimes we just judge, and we all do that, because I think judgment is the most difficult thing for me to eliminate. I've been working a lot on it, and I think it's, especially if you're a coach, you can't judge your clients, what they say, what they've been doing, right? So you can't do that. And it's a great training because it's makes you very humble.
Well,
It
and I
really-
mean, we are hardwired for judgment, but like, is that dangerous? You know, that instant thing. But right as soon as that happens, you can say, okay, thank you for that information. And then decide something different. Like, I don't have to hold that judgment of someone. I was talking to somebody recently there was a girl who approached, I went to the ballet last week. Can you believe it?
Interesting.
So,
Wow.
right, like, you know, COVID's over. No, it's not. But I went to the ballet and I was getting onto the subway and a girl walked up to me and asked me for change. And my brain just immediately said, homeless girl. And I'm like, why did you think that? It's like, what? Just because maybe she lost her wallet and she needs to get on the subway. But I had that, you can't stop that immediate thought, but then you can reflect on, where did that thought come from? Is it true? Do I need it? Is it helpful? Is it kind?
Yeah. Did you see that experiment that there's a couple of things I saw, I think on Instagram. This person is doing this test on people about judgment. So they're walking around and they're not dressed really well, but not bad. But this guy said to a guy who was working, so he was really like a worker in a job site, say, okay, sorry, I lost my wallet. Can you give me some money, or yes, for the ticket, for the bus ticket or something? And they didn't know what reaction that he would have had, but say, okay. So he reached out, and it was clearly like not a well-off guy, but he still gave this guy money. And then this guy says, okay, you won $1,000, because we were looking for the first person who would say yes to this without judging, without thinking, oh, this is a thief. So it's really interesting to see these people just lighting up and say, oh my God, it's amazing. Or somebody walks into a restaurant and says, I lost my wallet. Can you buy me a burger? And so many people will say, no, I will not do that. And the one person who says yes gets a prize. And it's interesting to watch.
I saw a video at one point where they were showing people's reactions, and maybe it was Mexico, India, somewhere like, and maybe I only think that because of the little boy. They had a little boy who was like 6 or something, and they dressed him as if he, was very dirty and had no clothes, and he was sitting on the side of the road, looking sad. Nobody looked at him twice. And he went into a restaurant and asked people if they would give him some food, and they said no, and they, said, get this little boy out of here. Same boy, they dressed him in like a school uniform. He's sitting on the side of the road. Everybody stops to ask him, are you okay? Where's your mom? He went into the restaurant and they gave him food. They're saying, oh, of course, we're going to buy you something to eat. And that is like the truth. Like, I saw it as like, oh my God, I probably do that.
Yeah. I have to be honest, right? Yeah.
But having that instant realization is like, oh, okay, so now when I have it, like, that's why this girl, I had that judgment, and then I went, oh my gosh, wait, is that really what's happening? Like, can you pause that?
But you have the ability to reflect upon that, which
but
is
I decided
great.
to, at some point in my life, I decided to try and exercise that muscle. Speaking of my physical fitness, but
exactly.
And it takes practice. But I bring it all up just because I'm like, you're right. Like judgment, non-judgment, and acceptance is something to practice. And it affects all areas, not just work. It affects all areas of your life, right? It's, imagine the world. I'm just doing a John Lennon song in my head.
Yes. What a wonderful world this would be.
Right?
Yes.
No, it's not always sunshine and unicorns. But
and just imagine also that, I mean, actually, we're very fortunate. We live in I might sound like we're going to play the violin here now, but we live in Toronto in Canada, especially in Toronto. We live in a very diverse culture, so many diverse cultures within this one city, even.
Oh yeah.
And the leading companies in Canada are the ones that recognize diversity of religion, diversity of whatever, diversity. There's one more diversity I wish all companies could do, and that would be diversity of thought, diversity of ideas. So more ideas are accepted and are appreciated. They may not be bought and they may not be used, but how many organizations are there that people go to the big meeting, the leader is leading the meeting, and the other people in the meeting are often afraid to say anything because they're afraid, oh, my idea may not be liked, and I may be shut up, I may be embarrassed. But the organizations that encourage people to say, let's brainstorm, let's come up with ideas. Don't worry. I mean, unless it's totally outlandish and it could be hurtful to other people. But as long as it's not hurtful to other people, let's try to get those ideas. Let's try to get those ideas out there, because that's going to help us for not only the growth of our own team, but it's going to help us for the growth of the organization as well.
Do you do that as part of your team stuff? Like bring in this diversity of
thought and idea. I mean, both Eleonora are probably the biggest brainstormers around. We love brainstorming.
Yes.
You have big brains?
Yes.
Big brains. And then
and they're stormy. Okay.
And when our brainstorming sessions are over, we're like, okay, now we're tired. I think we need another session. But it connects to judgment. Yes, that's something that I really, I focused on, because I think it's first of all, it's the main thing if you want to be a coach and work with that. And I think it really liberates any kind of environment if people stop judging and starts accepting, because, it's one thing to say it, but then I think also not accepting somebody else's ideas or judging comes from fear, like something is different, so I'm afraid, instead of saying, well, maybe. So I think it's about working on different levels. So the fear of being judged yourself. So you judge because you're thinking, oh, people are judging me, so I'm going to do that. So this diversity of ideas and also of thoughts is, I think, ingrained in, first of all, removing fear, because I'm thinking that people who are really adults and they are satisfied with their life, they're not judgmental. They let you talk. Whatever I don't like it when you say something and immediately people go, oh, it's not like that. Well, this is my thought or your thought. So I think it comes from fear, maybe, of hearing something that is different, and judgment. And again, that takes training, a lot of training.
And if I can add to this, I don't know if either of you have ever taken an improvisation course.
No.
But in improv, one of the things or techniques that they teach you, if you're on stage and someone gives you an idea, rather than say, oh, I don't like this idea, no. It's like they teach you to say yes and then add on to this. So, and I think if you ever go to Second City or some other improv groups in Toronto, the best people that do improv are saying yes, accepting, and rather than saying no, they're adding to it. And I think if companies and teams could do that, oh, that's an interesting idea. Yes, and let me add this idea to it. Let's see if we can do for it, rather than say no, that's the worst thing I've ever heard, unless it is, as I say before, hurtful to other people.
Cool.
Yes, even the debate, I think it's really useful to pick different topics, and maybe social topics that have a little bit of a controversy to them, and say, okay, now you represent this team and you represent the other team, whatever it is that you think, now you're thinking, now you're for or you're against this, and come up with, an argument for this, even if it's not your personal point of view, but it makes you think about someone else who has a totally different view on that topic, and you have to come up, and that is like a training to represent other ideas, maybe ideas that are opposite to yours, but I think that helps a lot.
Making them to argue against
yes,
their,
I don't know, uniforms in school.
right?
Are you for? Yeah, I think they should. Okay, now just talk for 5 minutes about why uniforms in school are not a good thing. Oh, but I really like them. Okay, but now it really makes you make an effort trying to think from the other perspective. What would a person who's not in favor of uniforms say? And I think it's an excellent training, because you will find out that it's not that people who think the different thing are evil. They have a different view, and it's not that there's the right one and the wrong one. So that helps. It's challenging though.
Yeah.
It's respecting other people have different opinions. And even though my opinion may be different than yours, and I may decide I'm going to go a different way, give me don't try to convince me that you're wrong and you have to do it my way. There's different approaches and there's different ways of thinking. So that should be encouraged in our personal lives and in our professional lives, being open to doing that.
Yeah, because I think the world belongs to everyone. Sometimes people forget that. Like, the world belongs to everyone who's alive in this moment. It's not that people have a right to say, you do this or you don't do this. It belongs to every one of us. So there's space for every one of us without, the punches. It can be just air punches, but not real ones.
And that goes back to what you said a little while ago, Heather. We're living in times when there's such hot topics that are out there right now, and someone says this is the right way, and you say this is the right way, and then we come to battle with that. So we need to be a little bit open to, even though it's different than I'm thinking, maybe we still should be open to listening to that, or we might not adopt it in the end, but we shouldn't be going back to, I accept that you might have a different opinion. I don't agree with it, but I accept that you have a different opinion. I'm trying to be non-judgmental, even though you have a different opinion. It's not always easy, and I'm not suggesting it is.
No, the labels are out there.
I used to say, when I worked in the chartered accounting firm, my manager loved debating. And whenever we went to lunch, he would debate with whoever was there about anything. One day he debated whether something was art or not. And I would just, I didn't really have a strong opinion on either side. And he said, why won't you ever debate? I said, Switzerland. I don't take sides.
You're right. You have to see if it's worth it.
Right? I'm like, because I'm not going to argue for the sake of arguing. If I have a strong opinion, I'll enter it into a discussion. But
again, different viewpoints are fine. But as long as one person doesn't push his or her viewpoints on someone else, you're wrong and I'm right, and that's it.
Right.
I mean, just trying to say, okay, I see you have a different viewpoint, but let's see how we can work with it.
So do you use the part of, like, I know that we've been talking all about, debates, but I guess when you get into those workplaces, is that part of what you're addressing when you are helping these teams? And I'm just looking workplace culture. Do you find ways to help these workplaces get into those conversations?
Yes, I mean, encouraging the discussion, we develop exercises and some group work and pair work that allows people to share their different viewpoints, and again, encouraging people to discuss, but not necessarily feel, even though my idea is different than Eleonora's, it doesn't mean that my idea is worse than Eleonora's. It's just that we're sharing different ideas. So we try to get people in the workplace to
and I guess with both of you there, like, the two of you aren't always going to agree, I assume.
No, we agree all the time. No, we don't.
All the time. I mean, no,
so
but
that's like, you get to show people, you get to show teams, you can work together and not always have the same opinion.
Yeah. And one of the modules in the book actually is the one about judgment. So we really do work on that. And it's called Stop Judging and Start Acting. Because for me, the antidote to judging is acting, meaning do what you think is good for you, act on it, stop thinking about what is the other person doing? Why are they doing that? They're not good. This is not good. They're thinking this. Okay, do what you think is good for yourself. Act, take initiative every day, and don't waste any time, thinking about what other people are doing, thinking that's their life. And I think the antidote to the judging that is not good, is acting. Just focusing on yourself, your program, your objectives, your goals to improve yourself. I think that's a magic recipe, because you focus on building yourself, and you will not have any time to think about what others are doing, because they're busy with their life, and you just busy, keep busy with
But
yours.
don't lock yourself in your office and not talk to people.
We will hold that against you, Heather.
Right. I know
think-
you're totally judging me.
I am. How could she do that?
Oh my God.
So, and it's an overused word today, but empower other people to make their own decisions without imposing your decisions on them. You might not agree with the other people's decisions that they make, but
it might turn out to be the right decision, though.
And you might think you yourself might think, what is this person doing? It's so stupid. It's a dumb idea. And I know it's better. They should be doing that. But the other person we still live in a world that we still need to empower the other person to make his or her own decision, even though we think, I know it's wrong for him or her. Right. And I'm dogmatic, and we
always know the best.
Exactly, for everybody.
I know the best. Yes.
But then we would all be the same, and we go back to that land of boring.
Really?
It'd be very boring.
Everybody needs to be just like me. No, I don't think so.
No, exactly. So
do you put on public workshops, or just companies, or what do you have public workshops?
Primarily, we are working within companies right now and developing workshops within.
So you work on your dating app and disc dating.
The dating app.
The disc dating app, yes. But I think it's something that we are considering, perhaps in the future, that we could possibly. I mean, everything's always open. If you could be a fly in the wall to hear Eleonora and I discuss, we're always open to discuss ideas. And I think you raised something good. Maybe having public workshops at some point. I mean, right now we're looking at going into organizations, but who knows? Maybe.
And I mean, I only think of it because sometimes it's a person within a workplace who recognizes that I need something different and they want to work on themselves, and maybe they go and get a coach, which is, by the way, it's awesome. Go get a coach. But maybe it's like, but maybe it's like they start as going to something and people see the effects that it's happening, and it'll ripple into the team, and then they'll say, yes, come in to our office and make all of us amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Right? More amazing. Everybody's already
even
amazing.
More amazing, right?
More amazing.
If that's possible.
Look at Brian's brain. Like, you can just see it going.
It's either going or it's on stall. You can, if you want to think it's going, go ahead. I see it. It's like, it's not moving.
It's like stunned by the idea. That's what it is.
Yes. No,
So
I think he's already.
So it's good to know that when my brain is going, it could, or if it's stalled, it has the same look.
Same look.
So you're safe.
Your thinking face.
No, he's already thinking about the next brainstorming session. I can see that.
Sure. First thing Monday morning, Eleonora, be there.
7:00.
Yes.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Yeah.
Seriously. So rounding back to wellness, and the wellness, because we spend a lot of time in our workplace, whether we're working at home or working in an actual workplace location. And do you have any, like, I want to respect your time. I mean, do you have any final thoughts on wellness and workplace culture? And I'll just let you guys decide who goes first.
I'm a gentleman. Eleonora?
So wellness in the workplace. How do you, I mean,
whatever you think, whatever comes to you.
I think, and that's to me is the hardest part. Sometimes people think there's a one size fits all solution. I think wellness is a series of elements, a series of levels. So it's also about thinking about what's right, reading books, but it's also about eating what's healthy for you. It's about
Resting,
whatever makes you
sleeping.
feel, resting, sleeping, mindfulness, meditation, whatever is, and anybody could do whatever they feel like doing, sometimes walking, but it's a rounded thing. Sometimes I think we're all too much in our mind, in our head, and I think it's a process. So it's exciting because it is a process, but I think this is what I would like our potential client to know. It's a process. It's not something that it's an easy solution. Okay, I want to change. It's coming 2 days. We'll do this workshop and magically, it's a process. So that's why we're also talking about following up and doing other sessions. So my final thought would be that your team starts from you. And that's what I think is a message.
Definitely. You got to take the leadership coaching. You'll like it.
I already wrote it down. What do you think? When you mentioned
I
it.
saw you.
Yes.
Brian, what's you saying?
In summary, I would just say that along with Eleonora, this is where we agree with one another. Find what's right for yourself. Develop, participate in programs that's going to create wellness for you and for your team. Find out what your team wants. Find out what you yourself want, so that you can create an environment that you're happy in. Hopefully, it will come at all levels of the organization, at the leadership level, but even at the team level, or even with the partner that sits across on the other desk or the other table nearby, creating an environment that you both feel good about.
Right. Yeah, so true. I mean, planting the seeds of wellness and positive workplace culture and let that spread out into the rest, right? So
Yes.
amazing.
Yes.
So good. I mean, we could go on all day. I feel like we would just keep talking and talking.
For hours and hours. We could do that.
You mean it's over? Oh my God.
And we have 2 more hours, Brian. Did
Two
you
more.
know?
No,
Right.
doesn't Heather know that, Eleonora? I thought we
No,
were
she
talking for 3
doesn't.
hours.
I didn't get the
Surprise!
memo. I
Oh.
didn't get the memo. Oh my gosh. Oh no. I'd have to break the podcast into multiple episodes.
So yes, get a quick coffee and then we'll be back for 2 more hours.
Yeah.
We'll just have you gone again for like part 2.
Okay,
Right?
sure.
Right?
Yes.
Well, part 3 for Eleanor, part 2 for
Right.
Brian.
Right.
Yes.
Oh
Part
my
2 for
gosh.
A&E.
You can just keep
Yes.
going.
Yes.
So, my friends, thank you so much, by the way, for
Thank
coming
you,
and
Heather.
sharing your time and your ideas and the conversation. I always learn tons, which is why I love having people on, because they're all super interesting people. And I learned something in the process of trying to share learnings with others. So a little bit of selfish on my part, but I'm also sharing the love with the world. So thank you both so much.
Thank you.
And thank you for your openness. That's what's
Absolutely.
really key.
Absolutely.
Thanks a lot, Heather. It was a pleasure.
And we'll see you again soon, I'm sure.
Yes.
Thank you.
Take care.
You're very